everybody, it's Sharon here. Welcome back to my channel for those who are returning, and welcome to any new subscribers that may be visiting for the first time. I've been having a little play here. In actual fact, I literally just turned the camera off and realised that I didn't check the orientation. It seems to be the story of my life. So this is what I created by the end of that video. I've been having a play with some flowers. I wanted to create some flowers using some yarn or some cotton, and I watched a couple of tutorials yesterday, and Dsscrapie was her flowers that spoke to me the loudest. So I had a play with this one first, so first, second, third. So this one I used, put that to the side, I used this, and it was actually, I think it's 2 inches across. Just check that. Yes. So, and then this one here is 1 3/8. So I just used my paper punch. So this is a 1 3/8 punch, and I punched a circle just with some tea stain paper, and then I sat it over the top of some corrugated cardboard. So I just had a little piece, popped it over the top, and I cut around it to give me my circle. Now when I created this one, I hope you can see there, I've drawn, it's basically a clock face. So you make a cross, so you can see my pencil marks actually from where I was trying to find center, and made my cross, and then I measured with my ruler from, where am I? From 3 o'clock, well actually that's from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, yep. And roughly worked out my thirds. So, and then I marked those and just joined, so I marked them in each of the sections and then joined my dots to get my lines. And that gives you your guides as to where you place your toothpicks. So they're literally just slipped in between the layers of the corrugated cardboard, and I hope you can see that okay. Now I do actually want to cut them and make them shorter. I might do the smaller one because I do like the smaller flower. I love the large flower, and I think they would be great for perhaps putting on covers and things, but this one in particular, which was made with kitchen twine, it's actually the same twine that I used to sew in my signatures. It is quite three-dimensional, so it has quite a bulk to it. I hope you can see that. So it will sit up from the page quite a bit. If I pick this up, just looking in camera so I can see what you can see. So it does have a little bit of a ridge underneath. You can see it rocking there. And this one here was made using the large circle as well. The ridge isn't quite as big on this. I don't know if you can, it still has a rock about it, but it's not as thick, definitely not as bulky. So if I'm not sure that you can tell from that, but it's just not quite as bulky. So I think that's more usable for inside the book. And that was made using my crochet thread, crochet cotton. And it came out quite nicely, so that was awesome. And then I wanted to have a play and make smaller ones. And I do actually have some embroidery thread that I've bought today that I wouldn't mind trying to make a smaller one again. But I made this smaller one, and all I did was cut my circle out, and instead of remarking my lines, I placed my circle over the top of this one. As you can see, they're perfectly imperfect. And I just used the toothpicks on the one below as a guide, so I don't know how I had it set over the top, but it kind of worked with what was there at the time. I have actually made one using this frame, so they're probably shifted slightly. I really don't think it matters too much, as long as there's the basic idea behind it. And again, I don't care if it's a little bit imperfect. I actually prefer that. So, and I love the size of this. It still has a very similar feel to the bulk in the middle, but I think it's really pretty. So I'll quickly do another one. I'll do this smaller one. Just wondering if there's a different twine that I can use. I actually think my other crocheted twine is in a different room, so I just said on the last video I use this colour all the time and it's starting to run low, and it's making me sad. I don't actually know what the colour was called, but it's so pretty. I need to try and find something similar. That's right, I was going to try and cut these. I'm wondering if my scissors will do the job. I just want them cut almost in half. And that won't cut. This whole moving craft rooms isn't working for me. I've still got things out. Oops, that worked. Okay, so I'll pop that one in there. And that one in there. Oops. I think this will make it so much easier. As I said, they don't have to be perfectly aligned, just as close as you can to following that clock face. Sorry, I just realised I'm pulling this way too close to myself while I'm doing this. I need to keep checking my camera. The autofocus just isn't kicking in the way it should, and I don't realise often until I've decided to try and post a video that it's not played the game the way it should. So I'm hoping you haven't had too many problems seeing my videos as a result of that, because I was so sad. I did one just recently and watched a playback of it, and there were patches where it was almost like I was using old technology because the focus was just very poor. I feel like that one needs to move across. That's better. I don't know why I'm fussing with that. Probably just sleep deprivation. It is quite late here. I don't know whether I've already said that or whether that was the last video that I made that I messed up, but it is quite late here. And I have another busy day tomorrow, so I just wanted to do this one task before I call it a day. Okay, so you pop the thread across the center and hold it with your thumb. And it doesn't really matter how long you leave that thread. Roughly your loops are going to come to the edge of the cardboard, so I don't want it as long. And if you, I don't know whether you can actually see, it covers it quite well actually. I think with this one the thread was in this, more in the center. Is it this one here? There it is there. So that's my little bit of thread that I started with. So you can just tuck that under or you can leave it like that. It really doesn't matter. It's not something that you focus on when you first look at the flower. But I did find that having it in the center there, it kind of became part of the center of the flowers. So okay, so I'm actually going to start with this one. And the only reason I'm starting with those is because they seem to be fairly well aligned. And I found if I had my yarn cross over, it seemed to be right. And you're literally doing alternate toothpicks. I'm just wrapping all the way around. And that's my first layer done. And you can see the number of layers that you've done by the number of pieces of cotton or yarn around each toothpick. So starting on my next layer, now I do actually do 3 for each flower, but I might do, the tutorial I saw for Dsscrapie, she did 2, and I thought I'd want them a little bit bigger, but I might try one with just 2 layers because it may not be as thick. So I may not have as much bulk, so we'll give that a whirl. So that's my 2 layers, and then you need a length of twine to sew in. And my needle is still thread from the last one I did. I don't really want to let go of the flower, so trying to kind of thread the needle with one hand. Actually, I just had an idea. My trusty paper clips. That will keep that in place. Good thinking, 99. Okay. So then we're sewing. So I'm actually going to go to my next loop, which would be this one here. So you're picking up, because we've got 2 lots of yarn around each toothpick, I'm picking up 2 pieces of yarn each time I put my needle through. The previous ones had 3, so I was looking for 3 pieces of yarn over the top of my needle each time. So I'm picking up the yarn on the left of the toothpick this time, popping that underneath. Now I did find it easier if I just tilt it slightly until I get that piece of string a little bit shorter, and then I can turn it back over, pop my needle underneath or through that loop, and then making sure it's not caught, which is the trick. And like I said, when I was doing this last night, I was actually pretty much tilting it this way, and it did stop a lot of the catching. So for all intents and purposes of the camera this time, I'm not, what have I done? I've totally done something wrong. Let's go back. We can undo. Well, that clearly didn't work. Okay. This is where you kind of think maybe I should have just gone to bed. So don't do what I do. I'm literally just trying to undo what I've done now. For some reason my loop seems to have come off the last toothpick, and I'm not quite sure why, but okay. So we're up to this one. Okay, so picking up two, and I literally was just checking then that each one of my toothpicks had 2 pieces of yarn over the top. So putting my needle through and then literally just pulling it down towards me to tie that off. And then I'm moving clockwise the next 2 stitches or 2 pieces of yarn, turning it upside down to pull that yarn tighter, threading my needle through the loop and then pulling it towards me, and then just moving. So here, let's see if I can do it closer to camera. So I'm picking up my next 2 stitches, putting my needle under, and I literally just turn that upside down so that my string doesn't catch around the toothpicks, and then putting my yarn through that loop and pulling it down towards me. And when I'm pulling it towards me, I'm literally pulling those stitches down towards the center. And that creates, if you have a look at this one here, that creates this stitching ridge around the center here. So my next 2 stitches, needle under, just turning upside down slightly. Popping my needle through that loop, pulling towards me, under the stitches, through the loop, and as you see I'm using my thumb as a guide for the yarn. So if I pop my thumb between the strands of yarn or cotton, depending on what you're using, it stops it from tightening all the way. Oops, sorry. I moved it across here so I could see better, but that was no good for you guys. Okay, I'm going to sit down and see if I can zoom in. See how that goes. That way I can see a bit clearer. Okay, so see how these are crossed over? If I pop my needle just down there, I can separate them to get my needle in. Yarn through that loop and then pulling it towards me. Next two, needle through and pulling it down towards me. On to the next one, needle through two, yarn through the loop, pulling it down. And you literally just continue this all the way around until you have tied off each of the sides of the petals. Basically, that's what you're doing now. I don't know if I'm repeating myself because I can't remember what I've said in this video and what I said in my last video, but I actually think this would be something that would be relatively simple to make while watching TV. Okay. I haven't tried that, of course, because I've only done a couple at my desk, but I think once you got the swing of things, you could make them rather quickly, and I think it would become quite second nature, especially if you did them in clusters, basically, so you made a few at a time rather than just one or two at a time. Okay, I'm getting a bit of a curl in my cotton. Need to just unwind it. Seem to be all thumbs. This is way easier with those toothpicks, much shorter. So I may need to cut the ones on my larger flower as well, I think. I am holding my thumb over the top of that just because the cardboard that I'm using feels like it's starting to bend slightly. So just adding a little bit of pressure to try and stop that from happening so much. Okay, and it looks like I'm back to the beginning, so I do actually stitch a second time into that first instead of 2, and then I feel like that just joins that circle, as mashed as it is. Like I said, it's not a perfect circle, but that's okay. And then you literally release your loops, popping your toothpicks back in, ready for next time. Okay, and then we have our flower. So I'm just going to send the yarn to the back, or the cotton, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you're using. Now you can see here, this is the thread from where I started. So I might actually sew that when I tie off my ends. So just picking up a couple of, actually I might go this way, a couple of those threads in the back, popping my yarn through and pulling it tight to tie it off. Doing that a second time. And I do want to hold that down. My yarn was actually already through the loop then, so that was a stroke of luck. Okay, and I might cut that piece a little bit shorter as well. You don't have to, but okay, and that's our flower. So this one has 3 loops and this one has 2. It still does have that bulk. You can see it rolling around there. But I think they're really pretty. And you could make them any colour, like it just depends on the colour of cotton or wool or embroidery thread or whatever it is you want to use. So I think they're lots of fun. And like I said, if you have a look at them on the tag, I may not use them on tags. I think they may be a little bit bulky for that, but I think they would be fun for pockets or just to pop onto a page to add a little bit of interest. So I'm looking forward to making a few more and having a play with those. Anyway, I hope you like this idea, and you can find many ways to incorporate it into the crafts that you're doing and have a bit of fun with it. Okay everybody, happy crafting. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.